content comes from. And I think this panel will definitely show you kind of 4 different sides, and while there will be some overlaps between what these companies do, each one of them definitely brings a unique perspective into how you actually operationalize storytelling. I think it's going to be very interesting, especially from the kind of the educational side, and how we can actually take some of these big things that we're seeing and actually understand how it's all being created and how we're actually working through that. And I think, from that operational side, we all understand why we're creating content, engagement, education, etc. I think the idea of how we create content is that aha type moment. So it really relates to me in terms of communications marketing. Storytelling, content marketing, and what Richard was talking about earlier this morning is just really important to understand how we're going to actually move through this process. So just to get a better understanding of everyone's kind of level of understanding on this topic, how many of you teach anything around the idea of content marketing? Okay, that's good. That's good. How many of you think you can properly define the word content marketing, or the phrase content marketing? All right, that's always interesting. And then, how many of you have personal or business experience in the content marketing world yourselves? All right, so good. This will be very educational for everybody there. So I'm going to ask everyone on my panel to introduce themselves, who you are, what you do, what your company does, the types of clients you work with, and kind of your one sentence, tweeters or even smaller, about what content marketing is.
Great, thank you, Adam. I'm Kiva Kolstein. I am the Vice President of Business Development for Percolate, which means all revenue that Percolate generates flows through me. I have sales and account management and channel partners and agency relationships. And Percolate is, at its very core, a content creation software company. We believe wholeheartedly that great content lives at the intersection of your brand's DNA, what your brand stands for in the world, and whatever is culturally relevant. And so we spend a great deal of time working with our clients to come up with great content that lives at the intersection of DNA and cultural relevance at the speed, at the pace of social media. So, of course, brands became expert at creating great content for TV and radio and print, but with the advent of social media and the requirement that you create great content all the time, every day, on each channel, there's this tremendous challenge that brands are facing today. And so that's what we spend most of our time at Percolate thinking about.
You give your definition.
Definition, exactly.
Sure. I think great content marketing is aimed at an audience. It's matched to a platform. It's triggered by an event. It aligns with a business objective, and it's spoken in the voice of the brand.
Hi, I'm Sam Decker, founder of Mass Relevance, recently merged with Spreadfast. We're a 3.5-year-old company. The thesis behind the company was there was a lot of creating content into social networks, into Facebook, into Twitter, et cetera. And those are screens that your customers, your audience might see, but yet where was the social in all the other screens? And so we built a software platform to aggregate, curate, filter, and visualize real-time social content and experiences into TV shows, into websites, into apps, into anywhere you want. So over that period of time, worked with major broadcasters, publishers, and brands to create a more engaging experience, but one that's also more participative. Because if the audience is creating content out on Twitter and Facebook, why can't they create content while they're watching a TV show or while they're into the website? And so we built that software. So content marketing, it's difficult to get a specific definition, so I like to talk in sort of principles. And in principle, I think it is this practice of an editorial bridge between the passions of an audience and the objectives of the brand. And being able to create something that is engaging to the tasks and topics that the audience cares about before they care about the brand or the product.
My name is Shane Snow. I'm a journalist and a co-founder of a company called Contently. And we started the company about 3 years ago with this idea that we wanted to help create a better media world for the three groups that have a stake in that: publishers, creative people, and readers, consumers. And so we built two products primarily. One, we built free tools for journalists to help them manage their careers, get work, market themselves. So we have this network of portfolios of people who they basically put their online presence, gather up their work. We give them data, we collect data to basically help them understand what's happening with their work, and they can use that to get jobs. And that ties into the other thing that we do, which is we build technology for brand publishers, or any kinds of publishers, but mostly brands, to help tell stories that build relationships. Basically, we give them tools and we give them access to talent, to any of our freelancers or journalists who have portfolios who say, I'm freelancing. We have all this data and we connect them to publishers that want to hire them. So we work with mostly Fortune 500 brands, but with some companies like HuffPo that was here before, in helping them do sponsored content programs and things. So content marketing to me is marketing through giving rather than asking. It's stories, not advertisements, and it's this idea of building relationships instead of interrupting people.
Great. Hi, I'm Paul Berry. I'm founder and CEO of Rebel Mouse. Before that, I was CTO of Huffington Post from year one to a year after acquisition, where I ran product design and engineering. The reason that I started Rebel Mouse is that I was being asked like 20 times a week what was essentially the same question, which is help, our website sucks, and our apps suck, and how do we make them social? So Rebel Mouse is a social CMS. We're now 2.5 years old. As a platform, we're reaching over 30 million uniques and doing 170 million page views. I'm very proud of where we are now as people. What our mission is to let content creators create community, and to do that without having to be awesome at finding the best developers and designers and product people in the world. And so we're an extremely cost-efficient platform, but more importantly effective. And so I'll talk about some stories of how we're used. But for me, we do work with a lot of media companies. We have 600,000 individuals who run their own websites and profiles. So if you're active on Twitter or any of the networks, we're Switzerland between them. Connect your accounts and create a profile, and you'll see what we do. That's free. And we're used by startups that are media companies that are starting to reach real audiences in shockingly fast time. But we also do work with brands. And so content marketing for me is brands acting as real publishers. So there was a great article this morning on Digiday published about what we're doing with GE, where they're turning into a legitimate publisher. And so I think they're one of the best examples. When you look at GE content, and I'll show it in meetings of like, check out this, and it's like an underwater musical sea robot. And people go, oh my God, and it's like, isn't that a cool Wired article? And it's like, it's the best, and actually that's GE. And so that's what I think content marketing done right is like.
Awesome. Excellent, thank you guys. So, as Richard mentioned earlier this morning, I'm from Mashable. I was CEO of Mashable for 5 years. I wasn't co-founder, some people call me that. I'm the first official employee since I actually formed the corporation underneath that. And always thinking about, we heard a lot about fail better, fail fast, trying stuff out there, test and learn. I was always, every little thing, some things you might remember from Mashable days, some things you hopefully don't remember. I was always sweeping things under the rug, but always trying new things. And I think one thing we haven't really heard too much about just yet is thinking about the idea of using content to be innovative and the innovation side of content marketing. And so, I want to ask each one of you, and really kind of just chime in with whatever order you want, but what is the most innovative thing you're either doing within your own company to and also give a better understanding of how your products work, or maybe with a client of yours?
I mean, I can begin. Is this on? I think Percolate was founded to help brands, to inspire brands to create content. And so we came up with something called a brew that would bubble up relevant stories that were, quote, on brand, that the brand could then create original content around. But what we learned is that's just a small part of what a brand manager or a community manager needs to do in order to create great content. And so we built tools around content calendaring so that all of your content that you plan to publish over the next 6, 12, 18 months can live in one place. Tools around creating efficiencies for how that content is created. If you think about all the people that get involved in the content creation process, you've got design and editorial and legal and brand management, community management, the agency. And sometimes it can take a long time to go from the point at which content is created to the point at which content is published. And so how do you create efficiencies in that process? And so that's something that we're doing. I think most innovative for Percolate today is empowering the employee to be a content creator and distributor. And so for us, some of the most interesting things I'm seeing our clients use are our apps, iOS and Android apps. So brands or employees of brands can be fed content from the company for whom they work and distribute that content to their own personal networks. We call that our ambassador app, and Red Bull is a good example of a company using that ambassador app. So you've got Red Bull Wings teams all over the country attending these events, being fed content to seed out to their own personal networks, and at the same time creating content by taking pictures at these events and feeding them up to the community manager who can then tweet them out real time.
A few quick examples. FIFA right now doing something similar to NBA Pulse, which is creating this social index for the event going on right now. So you can see what topics and players and teams are trending and where they're going. And so you actually, it provides sort of another view on the World Cup through the social lens. Game trailers wanted to be the authority of voice for games, and so we have in our software this algorithm maker, a social algorithm creator, so they could weight different parts of social to say, here are the hottest games based on what people are saying. And so that was published and lived throughout the year, but the interesting content play on that is not only exists, but they can talk about the changes. So every week they can say, here's what changed in the social index of gaming. And then Paul brings up a good point about GE. One of the things they did was almost an ad within an ad. So within BuzzFeed, they did this thing where you could vote within the site itself. You could participate via social, but it's through BuzzFeed of what is the coolest invention ever. And it was obviously promoted as BuzzFeed, and they paid for that ad. They also did a Twitter promoted post, that promoted tweet that was linked to BuzzFeed. So they actually paid for advertising on Twitter that led to advertising on BuzzFeed, but that content was more authoritative being in BuzzFeed than putting it into GE.com. And then they had the participation within that experience powered through our platform.
So one of the things that we've enjoyed is, as a lot of us are former journalists or current journalists, we have been trying to practice what we preach. So everything that we sell, we test on ourselves first. So we've been building this publication for the content marketing industry where we cover news and trends and features and things. And one of the features that we just rolled out that we have gotten huge traction ourselves on is this, basically we have been thinking a lot about how you measure the results of content marketing. Basically we decided that most brand publishers are measuring very stupid things like vanity metrics. Like shares and page views and things that don't actually tell you, does this person care more about our brand? Are they more likely to be our advocate? And there are things that work for old publishers, but not necessarily for brands that want to build relationships. So we built this tool called Insights, which basically tracks people as they come back over and over again, how much they actively engage with your content. The timer stops if they go get up and make a sandwich, and it starts again when they come back and read more. And we track what they do and how they engage with your brand over repeat interactions. And then because I think most people don't like or get much value out of just like a dump of data or charts, we actually tell you, here are the factors that went into the content that engaged your audience the most, that built better relationships, and here's what you should make next. So we've been using that on ourselves, and we've doubled the engagement and the page views and all of those other things on our publication, where we're now on track to beat Digiday by the next quarter in terms of how big our audience is, and that's, I think, a good case study for a lot of our clients who want to own a particular slice of of the market. And anyway, so I guess that's pretty cool. It's a good case study, yeah.
So I think I'm tempted to talk about what G is doing with pressing. So just 10 seconds is so cool that it's through the ad server on Fox News that you get the liberal point of view. And it's them curating stuff from Mike Allen and from Ezra Klein back and forth. And so it's been a tremendously successful campaign. But the Dodo is particularly, it's the flagship product they're using from us. It's a new media startup. It didn't exist 3 months ago. They use Rebel Mouse entirely. They didn't have to hire a single developer. They got a designer to do their logo. The Dodo's about the plight of animals. I connect with the content on it a lot because it's not about putting pugs in Yoda costumes or, you know, it's actually like meaningful about we're at this critical moment right now in so many ways. And so by month 1, they reached 1 million uniques. And by month 3, they've reached 7.5 million uniques, which to put in perspective took us over 2 years at HuffPost to reach. So in particular, to be specific about why is it working, the content is fantastic, but then we're providing tools to them so that this is sort of, we're a super social CMS. So there's one article which you can break down. It's about someone spotted an orca that's over 100 years old. SeaWorld says they only live to be like 26. So...
And SeaWorld.
Yeah. So that alone, and it's beautiful, and it works for every device, and optimized down to like in the iPhone's native Facebook app. What frame are you given right there? We're totally tuned to that, and but more importantly, they've added a call to action, which is a petition and our pledge to boycott SeaWorld. So that article got 950,000 likes on Facebook, which generated 5 million page views. But through the call to action, got 460,000 signatures, which each signature meant a tweet and a post on social with your hashtag pointed back at your property, saying, I pledge to boycott SeaWorld, and this is why. And you read that article, and it's hard to go to SeaWorld after. But more importantly, right after they sign that, they're asked to join the Dodo in a very lightweight way. So that article generated 100,000 new members of the Dodo, 60,000 of which stayed subscribed to their newsletter, 70,000 liked their Facebook page. And right after that, there's like, so blog about why this matters to you. And that has generated 150 blog posts, 10 of which have done over 50,000 likes themselves. So for me, what we're trying to do is convert content into community. And the more you end up, the Dodo every month has this larger base of people. Like we live in a world where the feed owns everything, and the feed's eating the world. So the more you get 100 people to come to your site first in the morning, and turn that to 1,000, and now it's about 10,000 people for the Dodo that come to the Dodo's front page and look for content there. So that's, I think, we're launching stuff with Viacom and with a bunch of brands around that, but that's what we're particularly excited about.
That's great. And you know what I think I'll do for everybody, as I'm kind of thinking about it and hearing all of you speak, I think what might be helpful for everybody is for me to give you kind of how I talk about each one of these companies and how I pitch them even internally or to our clients, just to get a better, quick understanding. I'll do really, really like quick pitches and whatnot. But Percolate, I always describe as, think about all the different types of content that are out there that you can create or actually maybe aggregate, etc. There's short form, long form, UGC, license, etc. So Percolate is work with all these different types of content through a content workflow, right? This is about how you actually work within these. Instead of like, I'm sure a lot of us are, when we write blog posts and whatnot, it's a Word doc or it's a, maybe it's in WordPress and we're kind of going back and forth, or maybe it's an email. We should all kind of elevate the amount of work that we're doing, is how I talk about partnerships as well. We should elevate that, and we also help streamline that across our business, and I think Percolate does an amazing job of how you actually work with any type of content out there. Mass relevant, and I'll talk about the mass relevant side, not the Spreadfast side, since Spreadfast is a bit of a competitor with Percolate these days. But mass relevance is kind of 3 products, 2 that exist right now, 1 that's coming out very shortly, and I'll give a quick hint about it. It's nice, can I talk about that briefly? Yeah, perfect. So experiences, how you actually thinking about like, sorry, that's not actually mass relevance, that's feed magnet, but thinking about the big kind of stadium size, and talking about like Times Square activations. If you have all these crazy activations and social activations happening where you can actually engage with them in real time, that is the heart of what mass relevance is and was. And as it's kind of progressing now over the past year or so, there's a product that actually I've been using this entire time called Spark. I can actually look within 5-minute increments, an hour increment, 24 hours, etc. But I use the 5-minute increments, and I can actually track all the top tweets that are happening from the hashtag, all the top pictures, all the top links, all the top kind of people who are talking every 5 minutes, and I can refresh that and see everything that's going on there. Granted, I don't want to, go too crazy and publish all these different things out there, but as a community manager, as the opportunity, even thinking about within your colleges and your universities, big events that are happening that have hashtags, to be able to monitor all those things, kind of publish them out there, it's super powerful. And then Insights is kind of the new product that's kind of rolling out soon that really allows you to deep dive into some of those search terms and topics and whatnot as it revolves around the world of Twitter and whatnot. But it's going to be pretty cool. Shane, I've known since he first talked about an idea to start Contently when he was an intern at Mashable. I think it's really important. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Behance, but I say Behance is kind of like the portfolio for every creative that's out there. Contently these days is really becoming the portfolio for every journalist out there who is looking for work. It is a great tool, and so thinking about all of your students who are creating content and having a place to actually house all of that is definitely great. And for us at Edelman, we've used Contently many times to find and source subject matter experts. And it's not just about finding somebody who's an expert in X. It's also about, finding a subject matter who's an expert in X who also has a social score of Y, who also really truly understands the type of content that we're specifically looking to create for our brands. And they do not just content, but infographics, et cetera, et cetera. And Paul, Rebel Mouse is truly a neat platform, because I think a lot of us, when we think about CMS, which is content management systems, we think about WordPress. WordPress these days, while it's great, and I love Matt Mullenweg as well, it takes a while to really get that product to be social and to really be integrated. And there's the workflows are really, I'm sure a lot of us blog in WordPress or use WordPress. It's pretty basic. But through the past probably 2 years or so that I've been chatting with Paul, the product has really matured to the point where you need to think about where you're actually placing your content. I have this phrase that a lot of people I don't even know called owning the owns. I think we need to come back. Social is great, and we should be working with Twitter and Facebook and everyone, but we need to start owning the audiences. And I think, Paul, if you could quickly mention too about how content can actually become the ad. I know you briefly talked about that, but I think that's actually a really quick, interesting point before we get to the next question.
So for us, we want content to be able to work everywhere, display everywhere, and be tracked everywhere. And so we automatically create newsletters based on popularity. But most importantly, we take that content and we're DFP compatible. We run in any ad unit. And so T-Mobile just ran a huge campaign with us, and you start to take the content, whether it's social or whether it's coming from awesome companies like Shane and Contently, and replace your ad with that. Because when I started Rebel Mouse, I was really curious. I didn't know. We're obviously becoming blind to 300 by 250s as they're served now, and we don't even notice them anymore. So is it that space? Has the IAB kind of screwed us by defining that space? Or is it what we're putting in that space? And the fun thing has been to see that it's what we're putting in that space. There's nothing inherently about that space. It's just that we're like living a crippled version of Mad Men, where there's this creative that one genius creates and then put $500 million on that, and it doesn't work anymore. Even HuffPost's most viral content 3 days later is on the way down. So instead, publish a stream of your content, and find what works and tune to it constantly, and accept that your hit, which will give you, I'm a traffic junkie, so it's like a drug when you're on the way up, and you just have to accept that, like any crack addict, it's going to come down. And if you know that flow, then you begin immediately learning and replacing it. So we make it really easy for companies to replace their ads with their content.
That's great, and I definitely want to leave some time for questions, so I'll ask kind of a quick question. And in my role, I'm always, my job is to really think about the future stuff, right? What is the future today, and what are all those things that we all need to know about? Because there's lots of things happening every single day, and I'm that person who has the luxury and time to be able to read stuff, but I always put together presentations. People also have been asking me recently, what's the future? And I keep going like this. And some of you, I see you're nod heading, but like, our future is this. These are the alerts, these are the contextual, like what is, that next big thing to take a page from Samsung? And so, as I think, from the content and marketing space, as it's evolving right now, I think a lot of us are familiar with kind of where we are right now, and I think you guys are doing a good job of having brought a lot of the kind of the world to the point where we are now. But what is the next big thing right now, and what you're seeing, and kind of where you're evolving your companies to right now?
So the short answer for us is empowering employees, right? That is the sort of the near-term future for Percolate. For everyone becomes a content creator and a content distributor, not just the marketing department. Beyond that, Keith Weed at Cannes gave a speech, and in it he mentioned sort of some things that we probably already know, that there will be 6 billion users on the internet. The middle class will grow from 1.5 billion to 5 billion. That GM is already selling more cars in China than they are in the US. So I don't know the answer to that question, but taking advantage of all that is where it's at.
I've been on the client side and been on technology for the last 8 years, and there are, here's 4 companies up here, there's hundreds behind us, that the problem isn't technology, the problem is process, workflow, organizational structure. Companies are built up as functional silos, and the biggest challenge of making this all work, our whole thesis of mass relevance was social should be integrated into the fabric of the company, into every function, the ad people, the website people, the event people, etc. And so we're investing in things that help that from a technology perspective. So I put investment towards those things to help that, but really I'm excited to be here because the real investments on this side of the panel is putting the real software in the heads of people going into organizations and figuring out how to cross those bridges and make things work together, because the technology is all there, ready to go.
It was either last month or 2 months ago that the cover story on Wired magazine was about Oculus Rift. I read that and felt like I need to rethink my whole future, because that's going to change everything about media and communication and life. And anyway, so I would say the answer is Oculus Rift. But for us, it kind of plays into, I think the future is actually the thing that has mattered consistently throughout, no matter what was going on in business or advertising, which is storytelling, and that's kind of the theme that we keep hearing. I think as there's more noise and there's more crowding, original stories that people want to talk about are going to become the hits that sort of become the thing that drives this conversation. So in the same breath, I'd say that the thing that I would short if I were making a bet is licensed journalism for brands. We've done studies that show that people are not very interested in seeing the New York Times story on the Coca-Cola website. They want the New York Times story on the New York Times website. You actually feel original content on the Coca-Cola website will perform 100 times better with audiences than someone else's content. So this idea of telling original stories as part of the future than Oculus Rift.
Yes, self-driving cars, I think, is much bigger than anything we're doing. But since it's related to what we're doing, I think it's Affinity Networks is the way I think about it. In the 80s, you would launch a cable channel and the audience was there for you. All you had to do was be good at content and you could create a massive and successful business. I think where we are now, and that's what is so exciting about the Dodo, is that you're finding from your social networks of, like, maybe I have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but who are the 50 who also care about the plight of animals? And that's an affinity network. And the way the web is structured right now, the audiences are waiting. So if you pick your topic and you own it and you wake up every day and you have a team who are about that, you're going to create this affinity network of people who believe that's their identity, that's who they are, and I think that's the really exciting time we live in now.
Great, and if you think about it, for self-driving cars, that'll just give us all more time to actually
More
read
time.
content, and consume content, so it totally affects our world. All right, time for questions. No, it's scratching your head. No, there we go. Let's do it.
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm worried you've got two things, what you're talking about creativity and about authenticity and affinity. Those are very human side things. We do have on the other side the driverless cars, and then he went on, Sebastian Thrun, and then invented, teacherless classrooms and, onward towards a peopleless planet. And I think those are really two strong epistemologies in the world today. The more human and creative side versus, and some of the same people are saying, well, we're going to automate, roboticize journalism, teaching, medicine, I think that's a real clash. I wonder, my students feel it, I read it, I wonder where you're coming from. I hope you can win that war and that you're on the right side, that we keep humanizing and not going to the peopleless solution, in which case, we're going to end up, whatever, with singularity.
I think if you Google Mark Andreesen, robots will not take our jobs or something like that. I can find the link and actually send it to Adam to send. I'm really worried about this sort of narrative science, robots writing the journalist stories question to it and all of that. Mark Andreesen, the venture capitalist, wrote this really great post recently, just a couple days ago, about how that fear is, we can relax a little bit about that fear. Made me feel a little better about how these things all historically have allowed us to do more innovative things and open up more creativity while we automate lower level tasks that, even as we automate higher level tasks, that opens it up for humans to do bigger and better things. So I think that's the optimistic answer, but I felt better when I read kind of his arguments behind that.
Anyone else want to tackle that?
Very quickly, happily it was a very long time ago, but I used to run the IT for a real estate finance capital group, and that was just a very different and horrible world. But there was always this tension that the stuff I was writing would replace, great, see this floor of accountants, when your software goes live, we don't need them. And what I loved is that actually it's always about making people more efficient. And what came out of that floor when the software launched made them more important to the company than ever before. And all of these insights were coming out of it. And so there were, and I do think it's important, I think about this a lot, you're either love change in the world, then this world is awesome, or you hate change, and this fucking world sucks. And with the accountants, there was a couple who were just so leaning back and so dreading that they never learned to use it and make it their advantage. And so I think that those who want it to run them over, it will. But I hope it's a very small group and the rest learn how to make it run for them.
I would just add to that, if you think about the job of the community manager, who works for either the brand or the agency, and you think about a global organization, so just take Unilever for a minute. You got Unilever, the parent, you've got all of the brands beneath the parent, and you've got all of the markets that each of those brands is in. You've got community managers who are responsible for tweeting and posting and creating content on behalf of those brands in all of those markets, every day, all day, on every one of the channels that they feel they need to be on. Incredibly difficult thing to do. And so what software enables that person to do is not have that content created for them, but codify what that brand stands for into technology. So if the brand stands for green and for sustainability and whatever else, that can be coded into the technology, into the software, and that work, the scouring of the internet by the community manager for interesting stuff to write on behalf of the brand, spoken in the brand's voice, can be done for them. And they can spend their time thinking about the original content that they want to create off of what is already out there. I think that's what software does.
Can you all discuss a little bit about what the downside of this tsunami of content marketing is? Let me just pose a concept here. We talk about the dodo. You talk about SeaWorld. What if a year, 2 years from now, something like this, research actually shows that there's no harm to the orca whales? Okay, let me just say. But in the meantime, now you've got 500,000 people that have signed this, and people have stopped going to SeaWorld, and SeaWorld goes out of business because of a faulty concept that wasn't based in science. Do you see a backlash of legal issues with all this push on content marketing?
I think it's a bad example, but a great point.
Well, it's using yours.
I guess this is a little macabre, but when I was in grad school, undergrad, but the internet was happening, I thought, would this have prevented, sorry, this is very grim, but the Holocaust, like would information awareness have prevented that type of human cruelty and abuse? And I'm sad to say that I think that the herds can organize very quickly and without fact checking and with massive. So every once in a while, I notice on Twitter someone do something stupid, and it was stupid, but the way that we, as a humanity, now gang up on them and pick them apart, I think, is a very sad and horrible part of the humanity and technology we live in, and we should at least all be aware of that.
I think the positive side of that coin is it creates incentive for brands to not do things that are stupid or sketchy. So there's almost this, if the pitchforks can come out so quickly on Twitter, it, I think, will keep our clients thinking about not doing things in ways that will betray people, because they know that that gang up factor can happen very quickly. So I think there are positives to that. I don't know if it's like an invisible hand of social media or anything, like everything is okay eventually, but I think there's upside to that too.
There's a great cartoon that says two stick figures, and one's in front of the computer, and it says, "Are you coming to bed soon?" And the other stick figure in front of the computer says, "No, there's something wrong on the internet." He's like staying up late to make sure it's corrected. Hence Wikipedia. I was in the reviews business for 5 years, and it's amazing. We always wondered, well, what if a brand sort of writes fake reviews? And there's plenty of examples of companies that tried that and got disproportionate amount of negative hype to try to make one product manager's mistake, and it set the tone for all brands, and to your point, scared all brands not to be disingenuous. Now, your point is more of if facts are wrong of the mass, and I don't know. I think in general the good far outweighs the what typically happens with brands is to think of the edge cases, is to prevent progress because of that edge case. And in general, the mass voice corrects, and the right thing comes out quickly. Because I mean, just recently, the New Yorker, I was just reading up on the New Yorker article about Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma. And now the community's coming around it and dissecting it and sort of looking at it from both angles. And I was on the side of that with word of mouth. It's word of mouth driven from the ground up, from the tops down, and there was this battle. And what's great about that being open is that you get all these others coming in as opposed to one voice that has disproportionate power to broadcast their opinion. And I think that's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the panelists.